قرآن واسق حياتي قرآن.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, today we'll be learning 10 more lessons from Juz 4. Let's go to our first lesson.
وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ.
The first lesson we learn from this juz is enjoining the good and forbidding evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning the two main things in this verse, which is Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar. Amr bil Ma'ruf is enjoining good, to tell others about doing good. And Nahi anil Munkar is, let's say if people are doing bad, we should ask them to stop doing that bad thing. For Amr bil Ma'ruf, let's say if a person doesn't pray or doesn't pay khums or doesn't do good things which are commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and goes away from the wajibat, we should try to enjoin the good and tell him to do those good things. So that would be counted as Amr bil Ma'ruf. And Nahi anil Munkar is, let's say if a person lies, a person backbites or does something which is haram, so we should try to tell them in a polite and a good way not to indulge in that haram sin and not to commit that sin which is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
لن يضروكم إلا أذى وإن يقاتلوكم يولوكم الأدبار ثم لا ينصرون.
The second message we learn from this juz is the enemy's weakness in front of believers. We have seen in the history that whenever believers stood steadfast against the enemies of Islam, they achieved victory. But whenever the believers, whenever the mu'mineen were not faithful and steadfast, they lost the battle, like the battle of Uhud. Therefore, we learn that if enemies are not strong, on the other hand, the mu'min should be so strong and stay steadfast in order to win over the enemies when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help is with the mu'mineen.
الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين.
The third lesson we get from this juz is to control anger and forgive others' mistakes. Yes, one of the qualities of a believer and a mu'min is that he controls his anger and forgive others. A believer doesn't take any decision in anger but keeps his anger under control. Now, since we believe in the Imams, our seventh Imam, Imam Musa al-Kadhim, whose title is Kadhim, which means one who keeps his anger under control. There is a hadith, the gist of the hadith from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, he says that one can reach Allah in two ways. Number one, controlling anger, and the second thing is to have patience during calamities. Therefore, a mu'min should control his anger and not make decisions in the state of anger. And also try to forgive the other's mistakes. If anything happens, if there is any mistake done by the other people, we should try to forgive them.
ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين.
The fourth lesson we learn from this juz is to show steadfastness until one reaches his goals. When initially the believers lost the battle of Uhud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this ayah, sent this verse saying that don't become lazy. Do not lose hope, rather stay firm in the way of Allah in order to achieve the victory. One must be steadfast to reach the goals, either worldly affairs or worldly goals or the hereafter goals. If we stay steadfast under the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll definitely succeed.
وما محمد إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل أفإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم.
The fifth message we learn from this juz is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prefers the rule of ideology over the rule of a personality. In the Battle of Uhud, the enemies propagated false news that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had been martyred. Because of this, many Muslims fled away and they started retreating, thinking that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has passed away. Allah revealed the verse explaining that even if Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is martyred, you should not leave the right path and deviate. Therefore, this is the religion on which we have to act. People may come and go, but it is always the religion and the religious culture that will remain alive and enduring.
لا تحسبن الذين يفرحون بما أتوا ويحبون أن يحمدوا بما لم يفعلوا فلا تحسبنهم بمفازة من العذاب.
The sixth lesson we learn from this juz is to abstain from arrogance and showing off. A believer's main characteristic is that he doesn't become proud after performing a good act. Sometimes we get praise for something we have not actually done it. A believer, a true believer, does not accept the false praises.
لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد.
The seventh lesson we learn from this juz is do not get impressed by Western culture. Yes, a true believer does not get attracted or impressed by the Western culture and doesn't come under the influence of it. Today we know that the West controls through media, film industry, advertising, they try to deceive everyone, including Muslims. A believer does not get deceived by these Western culture deceptions, as a lifestyle they flaunt is fake and artificial. Therefore, the West and the enemies will try to influence our kids, and we must be very, very careful in order not to adopt the Western and the enemies' culture. Rather, we should try to adopt the Islamic culture.
وآتوا اليتامى أموالهم ولا تتبدلوا الخبيث بالطيب ولا تأكلوا أموالهم إلى أموالكم إنه كان حوبا كبيرا.
The eighth lesson we get from this juz is support the orphans. Supporting the orphans is not just limited to the financial support, but also offering the moral support. As we know that Imam Ali alayhi salam also showed special love and care to the orphans, and he fulfilled their financial and moral needs. In one of the verses of the Holy Quran, it is said that those who consume the property of the yatim, of the orphans wrongfully and with zulm, is just like they have ingested the fire into their bellies. Therefore, we learn that a mu'min should try to look for, take care of the orphans. First of all, we have to look in our relatives and then in Muslims and try to support them in any way possible.
وآتوا النساء صدقاتهن نحلة فإن طبن لكم عن شيء منه نفسا فكلوه هنيئا مريئا.
The ninth lesson we learn from this juz is paying dowry to the wife. Yes, it is wajib on the husband to pay the mahr, the dowry to the wife. But yes, at the same time, the wife can excuse her husband for the mahr which he owes her. If someone has already paid mahr, the dowry to the wife, which is the wife's property, we should not take it back. That is, the husband has no right to take it back because that property belongs to the wife. Yes, if the wife allows, then only it can be given back to the husband. Women should try to follow Bibi Fatimatu Zahra salamullah alayha when it comes to the amount of mahr.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يحل لكم أن ترثوا النساء كرها ولا تعضلوهن لتذهبوا ببعض ما آتيتموهن إلا أن يأتين بفاحشة مبينة وعاشروهن بالمعروف.
The last lesson we learn from this juz is the good attitude towards a wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in different verses has said about the rights of husbands towards their wives. A believer always treats his wife and children with good behavior and kindness. He never behaves with them badly. If anyone hits his wife or children, he needs to compensate them. We can see the Islamic rulings in Tawdihul Masail. The gist of the hadith from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that where he says that the best husband among you is the one who is not arrogant towards his family and treats his wife and children with kindness. Inshallah, we'll come again with the next 10 lessons from the next juz. Till then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن اشرح صدري قرآن